Hey guys, what's up? Anthony with Mobile Jiu-Jitsu here, and I want to talk to you today about UFC 300. This is the biggest event the UFC has ever put on. I'm super excited for it. This fight card, man, it's like 3 main fight cards all on the same night. This is a crazy event. And in honor of that, I wanted to do 3 separate videos looking at different parts of the card. So on this video, we're going to break down the early prelims. Our next video tomorrow is going to break down the prelims, and then the next video will be the main card. So without any further ado, let's talk about our fights here. Okay, our first fight of the night, I cannot believe this is the opening fight of any card. Okay, this is Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. This first fight is like a main card fight, a main event in and of itself. You've got the former bantamweight champion of the world, Cody Garbrandt, taking on the former flyweight champion of the world in Deiveson Figueiredo. Figueiredo has won only 2 of his last 5, but I don't feel like that's a super informative thing in terms of this card because, I mean, the last 4 fights before his previous fight against Rob Font were all against Brandon Moreno. So we know how he does against Brandon Moreno. We don't know how he's going to do against any other competition in the UFC. And if his fight against Rob Font is any indication, this guy's still got it. He's still at the top of the heap, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes in this 135-pound division. Cody Garbrandt, I think, is one of the most talented guys in that 135-pound division, but I just don't know. I hate to say it this way, but it seems like at times he just gets into this mode where he's just a brawler. He's like, oh, you hit me? Well, I'm going to show you. And then he just goes right back at him. That's what happened in his fight with, I believe it was Jimmy Rivera. Okay, he just gets in there and, no, it was Pedro Munoz, excuse me. Okay, and he just got in there. You know, he's like, meet me here in the middle. They swung. He happened to get caught, and that was the end of that fight. Okay, so I don't know that you could call that necessarily a low fight IQ. I think it's more that he's just a proud guy, and he loves to stand and trade. And when that happens, every now and then you get caught. Now, that's going to make this a real fun fight. He's a guy who loves to go out on his shield. He's a guy who loves to go out and please the fans. And so I'm personally really looking forward to this fight. I think it's going to be fantastic. I have no idea how this is going to go because I haven't seen Deiveson Figueiredo enough at 135 to know where he stands. And we haven't seen Cody Garbrandt at the best of his ability for a long time. So we'll see. He tried a drop down to flyweight, and he had a hard time there. And now we're going to see, if this fight was happening at flyweight, by the way, I'd be like, oh, Deiveson Figueiredo all day long. Cody's way too big to move to that division. And Deiveson has a hard time making flyweight, by the way. But at bantamweight, this becomes a much more interesting matchup. The next thing on our list here, we've got Bobby Green, who is number 14 in the world, fighting Jim Miller. Jim Miller has been on the card for UFC 100, UFC 200, and now UFC 300. This is crazy town banana pants, okay? Jim Miller is a guy who he made his UFC debut at UFC 89, and he fought a guy whose name I don't even remember, okay? He was fighting, this is how long ago that card was. The main event that night was Michael Bisping in his 3rd middleweight fight against Chris Lieben, okay? You guys remember Chris Lieben? You remember how long ago it was that we saw Chris Lieben? So, here's what we're going to say here about this one. Okay, Jim Miller versus Bobby Green is a very interesting fight. Bobby Green has won 2 of his last 5. He's having a little bit of issue right now finding that place, but man, this guy makes it exciting every single time. Jim Miller is doing a little better in his career, but I mean, let's face it, he's coming toward the end of it, and he knows that. He was talking about for years how his dream was to fight at UFC 300. His dream was to fight at UFC 300. This is a guy who knows that Father Time is after his career, and he wants to end it on his terms. So I'm super excited to see how this goes. I'm super excited to see the way that this shakes out. Our next big fight, okay, I'm telling you, each one of these could be the main event of a UFC card all its own. Our next fight in the women's flyweight division is going to be between Jessica Andrade, who's number 5 in the world, taking on number 6, Marina Rodriguez. This fight is real interesting. Jessica Andrade just beat down Mackenzie Dern. Marina Rodriguez has won 3 of her last 5. And for those of you who don't know, the reason why I talk about it in terms of 3 of their last 5 or 2 of their last 5 or whatever it may be, okay, the reason I do that is it's a good way to encapsulate what they've done recently. I think sometimes we kind of go like, oh, well, they're a 500 fighter. It's like, yeah, but what have they done lately? Like, oh, he's 7-7 in the UFC, but what does that look like right now? Okay, is it that he's on a 3-fight win streak? Is it that she's on a 3-fight win streak? Is it that they're on a 2-fight skid? What does that look like? It's important to note. And so to me, the best way to look at that is the last 5 fights. Marina Rodriguez has won 3 of her last 5. She's still at the top of the heap. She's not going anywhere anytime soon. Jessica Andrade, unfortunately, when I look at her career, man, it's hard for me because I always color everything through the lens of she beat Rose Namajunas, but she lost to Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And the first time I really paid attention to a fight from Jessica Andrade was that women's strawweight title fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, where she just got beat down and beat up. Okay, she did not look at all like she belonged in there with Joanna. Now, she's gotten significantly better since then. She's made huge improvements in her career, but the way that I look at her, unfortunately, is always going to be through that lens. So it's hard for me to have a real accurate picture of how this fight's going to shake out. The next fight we want to look at is Jalen Turner, number 10 in the world, facing Renato Moicano. Moicano has won 4 of his last 5. His only loss was coming at the hands of Rafael dos Anjos, who's a brilliant fighter in and of his own right. And the only current losses on Turner's record right now, on his current run of the last 5, are against top 10 guys. Turner is a guy who is so athletic, he's so good, and he has such a high fight IQ. He always seems to know what to do. And so when I look at this fight, man, when I look at, Moicano's got 4 of his last 5 that he's won. I'm looking at Turner, who's won 3 of his last 5. It sounds like it should be that Moicano is the guy that I favor. It should be that Moicano, the way that I look at fights, when I talk about their last 5, it should be that Moicano is the guy that I go, oh, that's going to be a good one for him. I just don't know that. To me, Renato Moicano, he's been around a long time. He's been in some wars. I just don't know that I can see him going through another big one like that. Jalen Turner has looked so impressive to me. This is a guy who, in my opinion, has got to be going places. And he's got a big knockout win over Bobby Green. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how all this shakes out. Looking forward to how this all goes this weekend. So that's our early prelims. Now, again, this fight card, man, it's almost as good as a whole card in and of itself. This could be a pay-per-view, and I would buy it. Okay, maybe not, but at least be an ESPN card, and I would watch it for sure. All right, now that's our early prelims for UFC 300. Are you guys excited for these fights? Are you saying to yourself, I'll wait for the next set of prelims? What are you thinking? Like, share, and subscribe. Again, this is Anthony with Mobile Jiu-Jitsu, and thank you so much. I look forward to hearing from you guys soon.